Welcome to episode 232 of Wealth Talk. My name's Christian Rodwell, the Membership Director for Wealth Builders, joined today by our founder, Mr. Kevin Whelan. Hi, Kevin.
Hello, Chris. Great to be with you again, and such a pleasure to have a real, true friend of Wealth Builders repeating, but having moved up a level, the transition from where he was when he first met us into, well, who he's become now, which is I'm not going to say an ugly duckling turned into a swan or a caterpillar turned into a butterfly, but there's probably some truth in there somewhere.
It's incredible to see the transformation in our member Neil Moggan, who is our guest today, and in particular focusing in on Neil's passion, which is all around helping children and specifically around mental health, anxiety, behavioural issues that we know exist a lot. It seems to be becoming very prevalent, Kevin, in our society today, and Neil is making a real stamp and helping many children with his work.
Yeah, and it's an outstanding thing to see. And while I'm not qualified to speak very much about the subject matter, I can comment in just layperson's terms that I think the current generation don't see anything but uncertainty. You know, if you think about what have they seen? You know, they see political unrest, social unrest, economic unrest, wars, pandemics, social media, all sorts of different things, children committing suicide for bullying, you get rich quick schemes. There's this everything that is about negative seems to be prevalent in today's society, and as a challenge that affects young people in a different way to the way it affects us. And Neil sees it right to the sharp end. I think he makes a comment about the number of children who are waiting to receive some kind of treatment and help with conditions which are not necessarily physically debilitating, so you don't see an outward sign of it, but inwardly debilitating. And that's got to have an impact. That confidence is bound to have an impact on their social mobility, on their financial mobility, and ultimately on their life expectancy. As he said later on, when you hear it, a point that made him so angry, he had to do something about it.
Yeah, so today's discussion is relevant in a couple of different ways, partly because we'll hear Neil's own story of how he's built wealth over the last 3 years and through the business pillar, through creating IP around his courses. Also in property, he's built up income streams. So that's one side of it. But of course, this ties in with our work with Wealth Builders for Families, Kevin, because it impacts the whole family and, will take up bandwidth and time. These are all things which we know affect our members when it comes to becoming financially secure and independent.
Yeah, I think Neil's definitely made progress in those three areas of wealth, really, which is his own family and his interaction with his family in all ways, in terms of building a business and how he's done that now, and why that he didn't even imagine that business when he started. It wasn't even in his mind's eye when he started working with us. That was not on the radar. And then into property as well. So I think what's great about the process of wealth and the transformation is how it literally changes lives. And we see it all the time. And sometimes we get slightly blasé about it because we see people sack the boss, escape the rat race, completely change their life around. And because we see it, we often don't stop and celebrate that. And I think today's story with Neil Moggan is a cause for celebration, Chris.
Absolutely. So let's head on over to our conversation today with Wealth Builders member Neil Moggan. Neil, welcome back to Wealth Talk today. How are you?
Hi, Christian, and hello to all our listeners.
Yeah, great to have you back, Neil. It was back in episode 180 when we did the member spotlight on you, and we walked through your journey since you joined Wealth Builders, which was at the end of 2020. So obviously lockdown times, you joined with your wife, Katie. So I suppose you're in, nearly end of year 3 now. So, wow. Have you seen any transformation from then to now?
Just a little bit. Obviously, I really got into financial literacy at the start of lockdown. I came across Kevin's 7 Pillars book, and from there we signed up for the Wealth Builders Academy, and it's been a fantastic journey. We've developed a property company, so my wife tends to run that around student HMOs, and then I developed a sideline business alongside my teaching role. and that's kind of mushroomed a bit bigger than I was anticipating and expecting, as I love teaching. So but I left my job at Christmas time to focus on that properly. So yeah, it's been a fantastic journey, really. It's been very inspiring, and we've met some fantastic people through it, and it's really enriched our lives, and it's also really protected us from kind of the cost of living crisis. I dread to think the position we'd have been in as a family, and what would have happened to our kind of our living standards. But that, because of the work that we did with WealthBuilders over lockdown, it's really protected us. So we're very thankful to WealthBuilders.
Yeah, no, we've absolutely loved having you both as part of the community, and we appreciate all the contributions that you've made, and especially with helping us in those early stages of Wealth Builders for Families, because family really is a core value of yours, isn't it, Neil?
Absolutely. I'm really passionate about transforming children's life chances. Obviously, I've been a teacher for 19 years, working with children in low socioeconomic areas. The school that I worked in, there was a 13-year life expectancy difference depending on what side of the road children were born on. We had the most affluent socioeconomic area next to the lowest socioeconomic area. So when I found that out, I was really angry about that. And then I was like, right, what can I do to change that? And I'm also a dad. I've got two beautiful children, and that was my earliest ambition, was to be a dad from the age of 6. So family is so important to me and young people.
Yeah. So as you mentioned there, you sacked your boss, and that was a big life transition, I guess, for you, Neil, right? You said you've been in teaching 19 years. So, for people who are in perhaps a similar position where they want to get out of the day-to-day job and start their own business, looking back now, what, any tips, any advice?
Yeah, when I joined WealthBuilders, it really wasn't on what I wanted to do, was to sack my boss. I loved my job at the time, but situations change, things change, and the more I got into kind of supporting other teachers with their wellbeing programs, and the more impact I was having, and the kind of the double pressures I was getting from working full time plus working on a business in the evenings and weekends, it became quite unsustainable. And I think the tips for people that are looking to maybe exit is to do a lot of the work first. And I worked incredibly hard for about a 2-3 year period where it wasn't particularly healthy, but it got me to that point where I could step aside and feel confident that we've got enough money coming in to provide for the family for 6 months, a year and a half, so that you give yourself that space and time, so that you can take that leap with confidence, and be able to be confident that you can protect your family.
Yeah, well, I think that's very wise words there. So today, Neil, we're going to focus on your new business and the message that you deliver so well to many young adults and children out there. And that's really, shining the light on the work you're doing now around anxiety, mental well-being, and metacognition. So you set up your company, Future Action. Tell us a bit more about what the purpose of the company is.
Yeah, so we're all about transforming children's life chances. We train teachers through online teacher training courses around early intervention, mental wellbeing programs, reducing children's anxiety, building their confidence, and creating these sustainable programs. We're also really passionate about the link between physical activity, play, and mental wellbeing. So we've got trauma-informed PE courses as well. I do public speaking. I've got a book coming out. So kind of that focus on transforming children's life chances is just so important to me and to Future Action.
And how big a problem is this out there, Neil?
Well, it's huge. At the moment, we've got about 5 to 6 full stadiums of Wembley, of children waiting to get specialist access to children and adolescent mental health services. So that's kind of the highest level of mental illness. So and we've got obviously a lot of problems coming down from that. So I think behaviours is a real issue in schools at the moment. Non-attendance is a huge issue in schools. And our children are struggling. They're in a period of this transformation. And obviously lockdowns had a huge impact. We've got social media as well, academic pressures. It's quite a complex problem. But our children are struggling, and we need to provide teachers with the tools so that they can support these young people.
Yeah. And what's the relationship like between the schools and the parents, Neil?
it's mixed. We have some fantastic families that are incredibly supportive, and we have some families that are struggling at the moment. There's a huge cost of living crisis going on, and lockdowns had a huge impact on that. So like there is this challenge, and the schools that are most effective are all working together as a team, and for the best interest of the child.
Okay, so let's look at some of the work exactly specifically that you do, Neil. And I know that you came across a model that's really useful for understanding well-being. Would you mind talking us through that?
Yeah, so like in the late 60s, Dr. Margaret Swarbricks created the 8 dimensions of wellness. And this is a really useful model for kind of understanding the different kind of interrelated aspects of well-being, really. So the 8 are emotional, environmental, financial, intellectual, occupational, physical, social, and spiritual. And like I say, they interrelate on each other. And that was really interesting for me when I saw that, because I was like, right, what can we do about emotional? What can we do about physical? What can we do about financial? When I was thinking about supporting our young people that maybe didn't get that support from their homes.
Yeah. Yeah. And in terms of the products, the courses that you've created, Neil, do they focus on all of those areas?
No, we tend to focus on the emotional aspect side and the physical aspect, so the link between physical activity and mental well-being. But as I came across this, and as I came across WealthBuilders, I tended to do a lot around financial literacy as well. So my role in school as a director of sports, health, and RSHE. RSHE stands for Relationship, Sex, and Health Education. And under that fits personal, social, health, and economic education. So that's where financial literacy sits in that. And as I was doing the WealthBuilders Academy program, I was thinking, why isn't this taught in schools? Like, children need to know this. So I did some enrichment programs with 12 and 13-year-olds around this, and they were like, why aren't we learning this? This is so simple compared to what we're teaching in maths, that is based around Kevin's work around assets build cash flow, and what the difference between an asset and a liability, because a lot of financial literacy in schools is quite unambitious. And that's one of my frustrations, is I see the same old budgeting, and yes, budgeting is important, but let's give some kids some hope. Let's say, look, you can lead the life that you want to lead if you understand what ultimately you want to get to, and that can fund your lifestyle in however way you want to live your life.
I've been asking previous guests on other episodes, Neil, why do you think financial education isn't taught in schools? But you're really well placed to perhaps give a different perspective.
Yeah, a couple of reasons. This might be controversial, this might not be. So firstly, when you think about why schools were created in the first place during the industrial times, it was to create a workforce. And the school system is so huge now that it's very difficult to evolve. And that's one of the challenges when the world's moving at such a fast pace. Then the school system really struggles to adapt to that. Like even stuff like the internet, you could argue that schools haven't adapted that well to that. So that's one point. And the second point, Sir Alex Ferguson makes a really interesting point, that it's intentional by our leaders to create that workforce, keep people in their place. And I'm not sure. I think there's obviously a lack of knowledge about financial literacy amongst teachers, amongst education as well. So a number of factors really. So yeah, one of them.
Yeah. But you know, on the flip side, the education system teachers have enough already, right, to be teaching children. So one might say that it's not really the role of the schools, it's the role of the parents. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I get that. And I think that there are some incredible, and so many teachers in this country are absolutely brilliant, heroes for what they do on a day in, day out basis, and they're being let down by the system, and our children are being let down. Now, when it comes to families, yes, it's great if you've got that supportive family, but what if you haven't got that supportive family? What if you come from, like, none of us choose where we're born, and that was the issue that I had, was these families absolutely love their children, but maybe they didn't have the knowledge or the expertise to teach their children. And so what do we do about those children? So that's why I'm so passionate about it being in schools. But I'm also really passionate about, right, how can we get this message to as many people as possible? And when we support the family's financial situation, and when they teach those lessons on, then everyone benefits, because we know the relationship between financial income and health outcomes.
And the link as well between income and life expectancy, isn't there?
Yeah, so it's been well researched. It's quite complex, but basically, the more income the family has, then the greater access they have to healthcare. The more likely they are to have healthier lifestyles through access to gyms and healthy eating, less stress in their lives because they've got more freedom over choice of how they live their lives. And then obviously they pass that knowledge down to their younger generations, and that continues. So it's quite complex, but they're kind of some of the main reasons between that link between financial literacy or income and life expectancy.
Mm. It's been so fantastic just seeing your progress, Neil, over the last 2 or 3 years, and especially obviously since you decided to leave teaching. And last year, in fact, in 2022, you were runner-up, weren't you, in an award, Financial Teacher of the Year award. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Yeah, so again, a lot of the work was Kevin's work that I adapted and implemented, but that was really around kind of enrichment programs for 12 and 13-year-olds. So that we had this fantastic enrichment program where children could choose what they wanted to learn about, and I take a group regularly for financial literacy. We look at entrepreneurship and start thinking about different challenges that children could do that they're passionate about, and talk about the opportunities for business. We also introduce financial literacy into our RSHE, our personal development spaces for our year 11s, and then they'd get a kind of a leaver certificate when they pick up their GCSEs, just with some key information around next steps as well for that. So we got runners up for that. We earned the school £4,000, and yeah, that was just kind of the string to the bow, really.
Yeah, that's really good. And obviously when we were working together, you know, looking at the WealthBuilders for Families program initially, and looking at age appropriate lessons, because you've got young children, obviously 5 years old, up to young adults, 25 years old, and the lessons are going to be very different, aren't they? And, you know, any thoughts on when you feel is an age that's really impressionable that you can start to have these conversations with children?
Yeah, I think some of the evidence is about your habits are developed by the age of 7. So we want to start early. Like with my little girl, she's 8 now, but when she was about 4 or 5, we started talking about it, reading stories together, and she loves them. I was asking her the other day what she enjoyed the most, because we've done quite a bit around financial literacy. It's a lovely way for us to bond together, really. And she said that she enjoyed most the stories that we read together, and we're now revisiting those stories. Our favourite one is Grandpa's Fortune Fables by Will Rainey. So it's a brilliant book, and we're going to reread it once we've finished her last set of books. Just because the lessons you can obviously take more in as the children develop, but there's nothing like having a cuddle with your daughter and reading to her, and that makes such a key difference. For just reading with your kids is huge in terms of their development, their literacy. So that was the big thing that she really liked. But what I've tried to do with her is really try and personalize the content to what she's interested in. So my little girl, she loves fashion and beauty and ice creams. So she's created her own like business called Glow Up, and we go on Canva. We created the logo. We put a price list together, and then she created a video that she sent out to our family, to my wife's family, about how she was going to do this while I was sat watching the England playing the Six Nations. And she like fleeced her mother-in-law, my mother-in-law, father-in-law, uncles, aunties for about 21 quid, I think it was in the end, just doing their nails, giving them a massage, stuff like that. So they're the little things that we've done. And like junior ISAs, every time she has birthday or Christmas, we talk about, right, how much are you putting in your junior ISA? She knows I put away money for her each month as well. And then I kind of give her updates, but she says that's a bit dull. but I think it's important as a parent that I'm giving her that opportunity. My son's now 4, so it's now getting to the point where I need to start the process with him. I think younger than 4 is a bit harder.
Yeah. And is that rubbing off on any of her friends? And what about at school?
Yeah, so proud dad moment was in she had a personal development lesson, and the teacher asked what are the 4 ways you could, or what are the ways you can use money, and hand was straight up. She had spend, save, invest, give. And the teacher was very impressed, and she ended up getting higher than expected for her progress in PSHE. I'm sure it was just based on that question alone.
I love that. Absolutely brilliant. Well, talking of books, obviously you've got your first book, Neil, yeah? Coming out. You've been working hard on this. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so it's been published by Scholarly at the end of November, and it's called Time to Rise. It's about what schools can do to support children's mental health, mental well-being. There's 4 parts to it. First part is about outlining kind of what the issue is. Second part is around early intervention mental well-being programs and giving children a toolkit of self-care strategies so that we can keep them thriving. The third part is around trauma-informed practice and the power of relationships and how that impacts kind of life expectancy and how we can break the cycle of childhood trauma. And then the fourth part is just kind of look into the future. What do we need from schools, teachers, governments, families, children, to create a fantastic future for our young people?
Yeah, well, that's something we will definitely be helping to promote for you, Neil. And I really hope you'll be speaking to some of our founder members as well about all of this inside the community.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very happy to connect and chat with anyone that's passionate about these areas and financial literacy.
Yeah. Now, there's one word that you use a lot, and that's metacognition, Neil. For someone who perhaps isn't quite clear, what does that involve? Can you explain?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of developments around that in schools over maybe the last 4, 5, 6 years, really, and it's about thinking about our thinking. It's about, right, what are the questions that we ask ourselves before we start a task? So what do I need to be successful? What strategy will I use during the task? So how's this going? What could I change? Is there any support I need? And then reflecting after you've completed the task is, how did the task go? What would I change? What if I did it again? What would I do differently? And I think it links in really well with when we're doing these exercises with our children around financial literacy, is getting them to reflect on what's gone well and what's not gone well. Same for the Wealth Builders Academy when we're looking to build wealth, is right, that strategy worked really well. What would I do differently? And you and Kevin often talk about maybe once you've done it 2 or 3 times, you kind of refine the process and you get better. And that's really what metacognition is. It's thinking about thinking.
Yeah. Well, it's some amazing lessons that you are sharing and putting out there, Neil. So we're really excited for you to see this grow, to see this build and develop, to see you win more awards and become that Amazon bestseller, which I'm sure won't be far away. And as I said earlier, to help our members to really understand this and be able to pass on some of these lessons to their own children.
No, thank you. Thanks so much for having me today. It's been great. And like I say, very happy to reach out. You can find my website at futureaction.co.uk. We've got loads of blogs and case studies about the work that we do in about 150 schools around the world so far. So do reach out to us. Do tell if you've got children, do tell your schools about us. So we're keen to help as many young people and their teachers as we can.
Yeah, keep up the great work. Thanks, Neil.
Cheers, Christian. Thank you.
So thanks to Neil for sharing everything that he's doing there. Congratulations to both him and to his wife, Katie. And we will dive into some of those lessons that we've picked up, Kevin. Before we do that, we've had more reviews from our Trustpilot page. So I'm going to scroll through and pull out a review that's coming from David, who says, building wealth is not a concept that comes naturally to most people and not something taught in school. If you were to ask, many would probably say that building wealth comes from earning lots of money via a high-powered job. Well, it isn't. Wealth building is an attitude combined with a process. And Kevin and Christian have developed the process and structured it to be available in bite-sized pieces that you can access, digest, and implement at your own pace. All you need is the attitude to succeed.
Can't argue with that. I mean, there's a whole bunch of lessons in that review right there. But thank Dave for the review, and I'm glad that he's getting some value. And you can clearly see Neil's had value, not just a statement about attitude and state of mind in terms of mindset, but what he's actually done with it. And I think there's a spectacular change. And I mentioned before the interview, having a business wasn't really on the radar. I mean, well, there was a little bit of that activity, but he never saw the intention of leaving the job of being a teacher but now he's left the job of being a teacher to be a teacher. It's a bit like the bankers who create a SSAS and become bank of self, and they learn to be much more in control of their money. But from Neil's point of view, he's teaching on his own terms, and he's teaching what he's passionate about, and he's teaching something that ultimately is building an asset. And I think we've showcased before, Chris, a book which we resonate with called Key Person of Influence. Daniel Priestley, who's again a good friend of WealthBuilders, and we like him and his IP a lot. And talking about passion and presenting. Now, no disrespect intended to Neil, right? And I'm sure he'll have a little frisson inside when he listens back to this. But when Neil and I first started talking, and you heard Neil say he's a public speaker, he's a presenter, and he is, you hear the confidence in that. He was less than confident when we first started speaking, and we talked about doing some things together online. I mean, he was very nervous and very uncomfortable on camera and in front of people. Now he's natural. He's a complete natural. And I think it's brilliant to see that transformation and confidence, and that's changing who he feels about himself as a person. You hear the confidence. You heard him say confident, not just in terms of the confidence to essentially live a more comfortable life in a world where it is uncertain. And he talks specifically about the challenge of the increasing cost of living, but the confidence to give up a job, to pursue a business, the confidence for him to spend the right amount of time with his children and passioning them, or imbuing them with the same passion and gradual lessons. And I'm really pleased for him. I couldn't thank him enough for his contribution to what he's done on the outside. He's so helpful and so willing, as you even heard there, to give his time. Obviously mindful that you can't give up your time, otherwise you'll be a fool just helping people. But he does that so ably and so and so well without anything other than willing to be a helping hand to anybody else. Almost that imagination we've had many times, Chris, of you're crossing a bridge and you've extended your hand behind you to welcome and to help somebody else who's a little further, but you need the humility to stick your hand in front of you and say, can you help me? And we helped him, and we're glad we did, and now he's helping others and helping himself too, and I think it's just great to see.
Our membership base consists of a combination of business owners and those that are currently in jobs trying to build up the asset income, so it allows them to jump ship, so to speak. And I think it's important, Kevin, that we highlight how Neil did that in a kind of a calculated way, which is important, and not just to sack your boss and then hope for the best, but to make sure you're building up that recurring income, that it's consistent and reliable for a period of time before you make that transition. And sometimes we see members cut down their hours, so it becomes a part-time basis on their full-time job, and part-time on their wealth. And important lesson to make sure that you don't take that decision too lightly and too quickly.
Well, we do say, Chris, that the journey to security is probably 2 to 3 years, and the journey to independence probably 5 to 7. And you are building bridges, and in a sense, the gap between where you are now and where you want to be is a chasm. And you build out from that, just as you would in engineering terms. So he built a level of recurring income to give stability, so that the jump from zero recurring income to a recurring income needed to keep the family secure would have been too big. And for most people it is, isn't it? If you take a leap from no recurring income to needing 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, whatever the security figure is in the mind of each of our families, that's too big a gap and too big a risk. So building outwards and then reaching out to people ahead of you to help build towards you, then the gap is a step. It's not massive. And that's what we do. That's what we help people do, to bridge that gap ably and confidently so they can do so and live the life that they want to live. And ultimately, of course, just as importantly, to then know how to do that so they can do that for their own families and their own children. And we heard from Neil, he's starting to do that, albeit, what are they, 8 and 4, but the 8-year-old with Glow Up and, that sort of little business idea already. And it made me laugh when he talked about fleecing the family, but in reality, you know, there's a little mini entrepreneur sat in his daughter there that's burgeoning to get out, and that creativity will find its way out somewhere.
And businesses come in all shapes and sizes, but if you can wake up every morning going to work on a business that you absolutely love, that you're fully passionate about, which Neil clearly is, then that surely makes it all the more rewarding.
Well, it does, but of course we know that a lot of people follow their passion in business, but they don't make any money and they never get free. So the very passion ensnares them by the fabric they construct around them. That sounds like a fancy way of saying that sometimes what you do then traps you, and because you get too caught up in the doing it. And Neil didn't do that. He built it well. And I think it helps when you've got a coach that helps you, A, stay accountable, B, build the bridge, but C, celebrate and look where you've been. So you can look back and go, oh, right, yeah, I've come a long way. That's important. You don't always do that when you're on your own. So you're trying to build that bridge on your own. It's tough, you know, because your head's down. So you're not looking up and around you and behind you. So I think having that support mechanism, that supporting community, and a coach is the best way to experience it. But, you know, as we've announced recently, Chris, we've made all of our membership levels super accessible and super affordable for anybody who wants to get started. So definitely would be great if you put in the show notes where people could check out on new offerings to see whether or not, if you've been sitting on the fence for a little while, maybe like, you know, perhaps Neil at the start, you want to start to make a few steps forward.
Yeah, for sure. Head to the WealthBuilders website. We've made lots of changes over the last couple of months. You can see our new membership plans, all of our podcast archive, video recordings, lots and lots. Head to wealthbuilders.co.uk for more information. And we'll look forward to bringing more of our member success stories in forthcoming episodes, Kevin.
Always love to see that, Chris. And if we can showcase somebody every month so that we've got a nice balance of new ideas, success stories, some great people, some CEOs that we're interviewing now, lots of exciting things to share in 2024, and not least a fantastic experience of the cash flow game that, you know, you've been pioneering, and we're now getting some incredible numbers of people turning up to play a game. And somebody said to me, oh, I can't believe you're getting grown-ups to play Monopoly and coming to it and paying for it. It's like, yeah, they are, but it's Monopoly with meaning, isn't it, really? Yeah. So if you like the Kiyosaki books, you'll love the cash flow game. And we give it a lot more meaning, don't we? And in many ways, the UK application of some of the principles that are clearly influenced by Robert Kiyosaki are shared in the way that we do it. So we definitely have uplifted that, twisted that, changed that. But you can see some of the essences in there, which you can't argue with. It's a principle. You can only build wealth if you own assets, and can't really fault his idea of doing that.
Yeah, all the details of those events on the Wealth Builder website. So we look forward to seeing you at one of those events soon. And Kevin, just talking of events, our next one is up in Newcastle. So you'll be up there, I believe, in the hometown.
Kevin's coming home.
Yeah, so we're doing a site visit and an evening networking session. So if you're listening, do head to wealthbuilders.co.uk/events for full details. And can you recall the date you're up there, Kevin, for that one?
I think it's the 5th or 6th of March. And then I think we've got an event on the 7th in Barnard Castle. One of our Wealth Builder friends, Terry, who we did a podcast on with recently. And then I'm heading to Birmingham to meet with a whole bunch of property members and hosts to talk about how we can all help each other as hosts, all spreading the word of wealth building. So we're really building a great family, Chris, and we hope somewhere down the line you listeners turn into family members with us, because we'd love to change your life.
Yeah, and if you've enjoyed listening to today's episode, please do hit the share button, share this with a friend, someone you think might benefit, and spread the word for us. We very much appreciate that. And we'll be reading out more reviews and interviewing more of our wonderful guests and members next week. All right. So, Kevin, we'll be back same time, same place next week.
We will, my friend. And until then, see ya.